Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Property Pals Podcast, the podcast that talks about everything property and in between with Josh Jenkins and Chris Japp. Say hello, Josh.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode. Now, on today's show, we've got a very, very exciting guest in front of us. He is one of the 3 founding members of AWT. He's got a fully systemised deal sourcing business that currently employs 4 staff. Him and his company has been involved with £50 million worth of development.
Wow.
This year.
I feel like we should have an audience and they should be clapping right now.
Yeah.
Should be doing that.
Welcome to the show, James Armstrong.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's an exciting year, isn't it? We've had all sorts of stuff happen over the last 18 months you couldn't have expected. Not just the pandemic, but like business in general. And for us, we started 21 with...
You've got the sunshine after the storm, I think is where you're at now.
Yeah,
And it sounds like you've not just got that, you've got everyone's sunshine almost. You're taking it.
Yeah.
Good.
The scary part is, like you just mentioned there, you've done all this stuff in the past year. We've just been through a pandemic. Most people have been locked down and, utilising...
Hey, well, when I was at home with nothing to do for like months on end, when you couldn't go out anywhere, like you just sit there thinking and planning about what you want to do. And I know you guys are the same because you're looking at developments and you think, hey, I want to make a bit more money in the business. How do we want to do it? What new income stream do you want to pursue? And for us, it was development. So we cracked the whip at the start of 2021.
And went through it. See, most people, I know I fell into that for a short period anyway, of just deciding, my biggest decisions was what shall I get out of the fridge? What shall I have for takeaway today?
It's not that, no.
It's easy done though, isn't it?
It is.
Take your foot off the gas. And I think complacency, it's hard in this industry, especially if you're starting out with nothing, then you start making like $5,000 a month and you're like, geez, I'm balling.
Yeah, this is
enough more than you've ever seen before in your
make
life.
it rain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then if you want to keep pushing, you've got to keep going. It's very easy to, as I say, just consolidate and just take your foot off.
I think that's an accolade for yourself, though. Every time people speak of you and hear of you, is so how much of a strong mindset you've got and driven you are and ambitious. Whereas, like I say, most people just sort of slouch back and think this pandemic will be over sometime soon.
It's an excuse. I can't do it. This is the pandemic says I can't do anything. Yeah, you've built this. You've not waited until someone goes, right, the pandemic's over. Like obviously it's not. They're still going through things. So there's been no end date for you to go, right, now I can start. So all this has happened during the same time where people have gone, I can't do anything because, excuse sort of thing.
I think that's the first question really is £50 million a lot of money. It's a lot. Wow. I don't think I need to tell you that.
Yeah. We go to Vegas on your business. Take us out.
It's not even over the past 12 months, over the past 9 months. How do you do all that when a pandemic's going on? The world's obviously against you and many others. How do you overcome that and set yourself apart from everyone else?
One thing I always say is perspective is everything. And there's a con to every pro and a pro to every con. And whilst the pandemic has sucked in a lot of ways, and for a lot of people it's been really hard, if you look at the markets generally, whether you're looking at stock markets, art markets, property markets, they've all been going up, right? No one really expected that, but there's been a big boom in general, right?
Everyone waited for the collapse, didn't they?
Exactly. So business is making money. And for us, it was like, okay, we've got a bit of time to think now, we've got a time to plan, which was imperative.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you'll hear this like all day, every day from us. Your network is so important. And when you're building 50 million quid worth of property, you need people around you. And for me, having Antti and David there with me, yes, I'm driven, yes, I'm motivated, but so are they. And at different times. And you're not 100% ambitious and driven all of the time. You do get times where you're like, you know what? I might just take the evening off.
But that's the benefit when you've got people to rely on, because it's the yin and yang. So it's great when you're all at the same level, but you're not always going to be. Motivation comes and goes.
Yeah.
So as long as one person is kind of carrying it, it pushes you along. And that's the good thing. I mean, we've talked about it in previous shows, haven't we? It's one of the reasons why we came together as to join a company, is because you can do things on your own, yes.
You can.
But if you want to go far,
you
need people around you. And that just emphasises the importance. I mean, we think we've achieved quite a lot. You come on here and
you have.
Oh, thank you very much. It's nice to know.
Not a good haircut, I must say, but apart from that, it's a bit like Jarrad.
It's for those of you who aren't listening, I've had my haircut and he scalped me. It's like Edward Scissorhands.
Close to the wood, isn't it?
It's gone. When you've got a round head, a short haircut isn't exactly the best. Move back on to James now, shall we?
I know all about haircuts.
No, you used a long head, didn't you?
You mentioned about Anthony and Dave there. Between the 3 of you, your founding members, obviously we've had Anthony and Dave on beforehand. Best of last, Murday,
Sounds about right.
How does that dynamic work between all 3 of you? Is it a case that you all just work on one direction, or have you got some sort of structure behind the scenes that really fundamentally helps a business grow?
You've got to have structure. You can't have two people doing the same job. Like it's inefficient and it's stupid, and you're going to cause yourself problems. Like there is no app out there that's going to give you perfect communication between your people. So you have to have roles within the firm anyway.
Yeah.
So Anthony, guy's a genius. Like he is when it comes to appraising sites, negotiating with vendors, delivering sites. He's super motivated. He's got the vision for the business. He knows where we want to be, and he's got a vision for marketing. David, everything technical. The guy's been doing this 25 years. Right?
He's just
structural engineer, architect.
Box of knowledge, isn't he?
He is, and there's nothing he hasn't come across. But he's not the kind of guy you can sit down in front of a computer for 12 hours. Like he's not that kind of guy. He's done it all his life. He wants to go out and have a bit of fun still, and he's all about, again, big vision kind of guy. But yeah, so he deals with a lot of the technical stuff, and then myself. I've always been known as the guy who deals with investors. I've always been known as the guy who sells, and I still do that because I love it. So I deal
the
with
guy who sells. Is this why you used to have the ponytail? Was it like the slick businessman with the ponytail coming in? Watch out, he's going to sell us something here.
Yeah.
You know, I only grew my hair out to begin with because I was so busy I didn't have time to go to the barber, genuinely. And then I thought, hey, sod it, we'll just grow it out for a bit. And then it was 3 years before I got a haircut. And that's just kind of what happened.
Okay, so you mentioned there, obviously, you were too busy doing things. Now we understand you're busy because you know, £50 million isn't one conversation job's done.
No.
So before you got into property, before you started doing, you know, your systemized 4-staff deal sourcing company, what were you doing beforehand? What made you get into property, and how did it evolve from start to finish, sort of thing?
Yeah, I guess that kind of ties in with my why, right? You know, why do I do all of this? And you get different reasons for people doing different things. And of course, everyone likes making money, and that's a part of it for everybody in this game. It has to
accept that. That's why you're here.
Exactly.
That's why people are there. You're doing it for the reasons.
But if you just do it for money, you're going to run out of motivation very quickly, especially once you've got a little bit and you realize actually life isn't that expensive to do the things you really want to do. And if you really want to take it to the next level, then you need to have a different reason. And for me, it was all about fulfillment. You know, when I was in school, I was considering going to hedge funds, private equity, you know, investment banking, basically.
Wow.
And at the time, apart from the fact that it seemed like a lot of work, was I didn't actually like the idea of the way the work week would be structured in terms of the amount of hours you had to work. I was a bit lazy, to be honest with you.
So
How many hours are we talking?
Like 80, 100 hours a week, which is a lot, but
For someone
it's
else.
ironic though, isn't it?
It is ironic
we've
because-
spoke before, and you know, I'll let you say it. Go on.
well, there have been times like, okay, so anyway, I'll tie it in. So yeah, like I came out of school anyway, I had some dead end retail jobs. Like I learned the meaning of boredom. I always thought having a 3-month holiday would be great. Like do what you want whenever you want, and I was still getting paid. But you know, I was just so bored and unfulfilled. It didn't really matter. I had to be doing something. I worked out kind of who I was. It's the driven side of me. I've got to keep that stimulated. So I didn't stop when I became financially free. And I just kind of fell into property. I went to a networking event one day, just found it and was like, okay, this looks cool.
Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, houses with no money. That sounds like a bit of fun. I like the idea of financial freedom. I like the idea of being a landlord. Yeah, it sounds great. And I went and paid for training, all this, that, and the other. And while I was going through training, I got a job as a Sparky, and I was working outdoor events, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it was during that I kind of learned the lesson around sort of, I wouldn't say hard manual labor, like, but just doing long hours and a lot of physical hours. Just, 15,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
I'd do weekend work as well. And I beat my 80 to 100 hour point during that period as well. I did 51 hours one weekend once in overtime, plus a 60-hour week.
Mental. He's making up hours for the days now. He does 26-hour days.
Mate, a 26-hour day would suit me so well. Or even a 30-hour day would be great.
Right, that's if
10 hours of sleeping, 20 hours of working. Imagine how much you can get done during that. Jeez. If anyone knows how to make a day longer, please hit me up. I really need that. Thank you.
Those miracle workers out there. Let me know.
Very rich.
Get in touch.
It did. So I started obviously getting my education, training, etc. Learn what it is I needed to do, how to piece a deal together, roughly how to run a business, all that kind of side of it. And I started my sourcing business. The minute I sold my first deal, which was September 2018, was the minute I sold my first deal, I just quit my job. At that point, I went,
You just knew it was going to carry on from there.
I guess I kind of did, but maybe more from a kind of cocky, arrogant side rather than like a confidence side. So I didn't have a lot of evidence to suggest it was going to work. I just thought, hey, I'll work it out.
Just believed in it.
I just believed. And I think your belief is important, but you also got to be a bit wise with it as well. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend that everyone do what I did. There were some times that were pretty financially tight. I remember I've told this story before, but I was away skiing one week just after Christmas, and I hadn't really sold that many deals, and I was skint, mate. I had an Amex bill going out the following week, and I didn't have enough to pay it. So instead of skiing like all day, every day,
you sell your skis, did you, or something? To make the ends meet?
I was hiring them. I couldn't have got away with that. I'm great. I'm all down for creative financing solutions.
Just got to think.
Not like that. So I just worked in the morning. and I sold 10 grand's worth of deals while I was away skiing.
Whilst you were away?
Whilst I was away.
So you found the things.
Found the things. I had my dad go and view them. I sold them when I was out. They did all the calls, all that kind of stuff. And that was the big realization for me that
carried on
business can just work, and I don't have to be anywhere specific. And that was my kind of second moment where I properly fell in love with what I was doing.
That's interesting because
après skied after that, wouldn't you?
It took.
Oh, I had a pretty serious après ski. Yeah.
Yeah, to get to that situation where you're out of the business, I think that desperation. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
You then realise, well, in actual fact, I need to do something about this, and it's just a case of taking action, getting it done.
Yeah, you bury your head in the sand, then it will all go down to pot.
Yeah.
But if you'd
be surprised
rise above it,
how much you can get done when the time comes, when you actually need it. This is the difference, because when you've got this is what it ties in a little bit. What you
away?
Yeah, because you're talking about the safety net.
These moments of pressure where you have to succeed.
That's it. Yeah.
You don't know why, but you always do.
You know where I think it stems from? You know, back in high school, you never used to, I don't know about you guys, but you never used to revise. It used to be like the night before job.
Oh, yeah.
You used to get it done.
Yeah.
I think it works from that. That's what happens. Like that, you talk about that morning.
Cramming.
Yeah. I can't say in high school I made 10 grand in the morning. However, the principle's still the same.
No.
I'd never made 10 grand before that, I don't think. Certainly not in one go.
Yeah, well,
a few months later was when I had the pretty awesome week.
So do you take from that the positives of saying, look, clearly, if I apply myself as a needs must basis, I can make something like this happen.
Exactly.
And you just took that to the next level.
Yeah, and then 2 months later, we did 71 grand in a week.
In a week?
A week.
What was
the
that?
discussion we were on a few weeks ago when you were trying to beat my record.
I was trying.
He was close. He was close.
I've had so many things come close to this. We had a few portfolio sales, and they've fallen out of bed last minute. But we've had we've always had a few sales that have come close, but they're not quite they've been completed sales, but they're not quite the same amount. So it's a little bit of a, damn it, I'm going to get it.
He hasn't told me off of this because I've been going like on the project side, you've been doing the source side. So it's sort of like nice to have, and they may come off. So, thanks for that one anyway.
It's like a little target. You're like, but did you beat
Friendly
this?
competition.
Did you beat this?
Right? Yeah, I love a leaderboard
competition.
Yeah. Where's the downside in like you going out and making 100 grand a week? I'm like, crap, I'm going to have to beat that now.
Yeah.
Challenge.
Come on.
Well, you've raised the bar now, clearly. I mean, you've gone away from 10 grand days, which is on its own is spectacular.
It's a huge amount of money.
And if anybody listening with that, that's the key point there is just action.
Yeah.
I mean, the knowledge you're going to get from deal sourcing and finding deals is the same no matter where you go.
Yep.
How many different ways can you look on Rightmove or speak to an agent?
Yep.
Selling it is the same thing. It's action. It's all it is.
And you guys are living proof of this, right? Because obviously I paid for my training, and I don't regret it for a heartbeat. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. Yeah. But you guys didn't go out and pay huge sums of money for training. You learned the basics and then said sod it, and you just took action. You implemented what you know, and then you learned the rest on the job. And even if you pay for training, no matter how much you pay, there's still be bits you don't know from it. And that's not a slate against training. I think there are things you have to learn in the game, and you have to live through. And you have a much better understanding of what to do next time because you've been through it.
Yeah.
And when I first started out, I had no idea how to buy a house. I remember I sold my first deal and I had to ring my dad because I had no idea how to buy a house. I didn't know how it worked. Like, there are things you don't need to know and there are things you do need to know. You need to know how to appraise it, but what's the process of working through solicitors? That's not really that important. Like, they'll walk you through it. Their job is to represent you anyway, although...
And it's rinse and repeat by that point, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And, I think focus on the small stuff. A lot of people want to do the big stuff, and I did very well, and I was blessed to kind of get that through so early. But it's not regular. You need the small stuff to pay you on a regular basis, and you need that.
It's the cash flow, isn't it? Yeah. It's it.
Cash flow is king. Cash isn't. Yeah, there's a difference.
That can come and go. I mean,
and with you mentioned there about your developments. What timescales are you looking at for them to actually complete?
Right, so development's a little bit different to like my refurbs. It's worth knowing.
Because everyone's looking for quick wins and they get into deals or something. Typically
you do, but like you can push rents through in 2-3 weeks.
That's
on average. Average buy refurb finance these days 9-12 months. You can get it done in 6 if you're like on it and everything's perfect, but that's rare. So probably like 9-12 months. Development deals, a
couple of months, something like that.
Yeah, you can do it on a Tuesday. No,
Tuesday in a McDonald's car park. Sold.
Something like that. No, the kind of shortest you're looking at really is a 12-month for if you're building like 3-4 houses and it's already got planning, that kind of side of it. But then if you take our castle, we viewed that, August 19, 2.5 years into that, we haven't started work yet. Like, so it depends.
What's been hold up then with that? Is that just
listed status of planning? The way we're doing planning, the way you finance things can affect your time scales. Pretty much with the development, the minute you start work, it's full steam ahead. But up until then, if you wish to, you can take your time and reduce cost or at least reduce capital invested. And that's obviously one of the things we're going to talk about today. But Other ones we're pushing through an awful lot quicker. It just depends on the kind of site. But on average, you're looking at 2 years plus professional time, but looking at roughly 24-month construction on most projects. Our longest one, you're looking at 36 to 40 months. But then you can phase things as well.
Yeah.
Some projects you might be able to get done in 18 months, but you'll choose to take 3 years to do it because you can get in with 10 times less cash. But you still get paid. You still get paid the same amount, but it's because you don't like to build 5 houses at a time.
Sell them off and then do the next ones. Yeah, I got you.
Which might actually end up making more profit. But then you just got to look at your ROI and you got to look at it as a business. One of the things that we will do is when we're taking on a site, it's like, right, when are we going to get paid from it? Because again, 2 years and there's expenses involved with this. Even just travel, you can rack up 10 grand in petrol bills and hotel bills.
It all adds up, doesn't it?
2 years. So how are you going to pay yourself throughout the process is super important. You don't always just get paid at the end. You need to kind of weigh it up between.
Yeah, but you can't wait 2 years with if you're counting on that as your only income. Yeah. Obviously, it's not.
I mean, it could fall out of bed, but even if it didn't, like you got 2 years of cost to run, and you might get paid £1 million at the end of it, but that's 2 years. Like that requires a huge amount of accountability for yourself to keep yourself motivated and pushing a deal through for 2 years without seeing a penny from it.
People get frustrated with, if I've not sold a deal this week sort of thing. They go, why is it not gone? It's just not 2 years. Imagine 2 years of that.
Exactly.
It's a lot painful.
Then a lot of people get frustrated about not selling a deal for a week. Like they might have sat on it for a few weeks beforehand and then they'll keep going for another. Some people bash dead deals for like 10 weeks.
Yeah, they try and... I find those ones, they try and make it fit though. Exactly, yeah. The effort you've spent on trying to make that work, you could have found something else and made that work quicker.
And yes, celebrate your successes, but don't spend 3 weeks celebrating. Spend a night and then get on it again the next day.
That's a long session, that, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm young, but I can do 3 weeks.
I can't do 3 days.
I've got that in the locker. Not anymore. We spoke to David Nanton previously, obviously, around the development side and the technical aspects, and you mentioned the castle there, which is fundamentally so impressive.
So cool.
I remember coming to visit on site and that, and it was just wow. Even going up a driveway, something out of a movie.
It really is. It really is. There's nothing quite like
that
it.
Long.
Yeah. Got a big swoop and bend, and it's like you're coming through
the
trees. It's all like dark, and then obviously you've got like the light coming in, so you can't really see until you're out. Then your eyes refocus, and then this building just pops out at the top of the hill, and it's just like.
Like something out of Harry Potter or something, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's got a stance to it.
But that's it.
On the hill and everything. Actually driving up the wide road up to it. It's very, very impressive.
It's gorgeous, man.
So we spoke to Dave and Nancy around the technical aspect and the development and things. But for yourself, you're very much on the front end of the raising finance. So talk to us a bit around that and, use the castle as an example or a typical development deal of how you raise that finance.
Sure. So when a lot of people obviously want to know about joint ventures, raising finance, and you can do this on literally any deal. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing to take away is keep your mind open to opportunity. Like there are so many different ways that you can raise finance and joint venture on things, so many different things you can offer people. But it's not just a case of, you find someone, they give you all the money you need to do a deal. It's not always like that. It's never even, not usually that easy either. So with the castle, we've got a number of investors in that. I think we have 5, maybe 6 off the top of my head. Different investors who invest in that, different amounts as well, from 50k. All private money at the moment. So if you're going to do a development project, you're going to need planning if you want to get lending from a bank. You can get some lending if you don't have planning, but it usually sucks. Loan to values are terrible and the rates are high. Yeah.
So these things you need to consider then, aren't they? If you're weighing up your options.
Yes, definitely. I mean, even with stuff like prior approval, if you've got prior approval or permitted development, so you could argue, planning's guaranteed. Yeah. Or
people often say that, don't they? Yeah.
Only 2 guarantees in life, death and taxes. So let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I prefer. It's nice knowing you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
it's not 20% up there, is it?
No, I hope
taking it with me.
So even with stuff like that, you're going to want to get it in place before you get planning, and that's when the first type of joint venture I'd always look at is just structuring your deal in a way that makes life easy for you. Use things like option agreements, use things like lockout agreements, use things like exchanges delay completion. Joint ventures with landowners where they're physically putting the land equity in for a larger chunk of the pie at the back end, or even getting paid halfway through or after you've got planning, like all this kind of stuff. And immediately you won't actually need to get 200-300 grand in your bank, but you might have just saved yourself 200-300 grand you need to raise.
It's quite funny you should say that, Vinny, because you've kind of, in that one sentence, gone through about 5 different ways of going through a development, or a deal, for instance. You know, and when you break that down, just selecting one of them, for instance, if you go to there and they wanted to put the land in, that's a joint venture.
Yeah.
And it might have to do a bigger payoff at the end, but they don't have to put in enough to...
I'd rather a percentage of something than 100% of nothing.
Tell you what, I said it, we should need to get down to neon lights, because because I say this.
So good.
Say it again.
It's
one
so
more time.
true. It's so true. People are so protective over the deals, man. Like, just do more.
That's it.
Like, and build the relationship for building the relationship's sake. You know, if you want to learn about joint ventures, relationships are the single greatest thing you're ever going to need to do.
Yeah,
so if you're going to do a deal and it's going to make you £200 a month the rest of your life, and someone else comes in, offers to go halves with you, so you only make £100 a month the rest of your life, but you're going to build a relationship with a bloke or a lady or whatever who's going to give you money consistently for deals in the future, it's worth it. It's so worth it.
Bigger picture.
Take the hit, do it. Exactly, bigger picture. With development, it is a bigger, literally is a bigger picture. The sites are bigger, the money's are bigger, everything's bigger. So you've got to think with a bigger mindset. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing so many deals. Like, we don't make £50 million profit on those sites. No. I think that's very obvious. You've got build costs for starters, you know. but even then, when you work it back through, I roughly know what the profit margin would be, but like, we're giving away a very, very healthy chunk to our investors. And the amount of times I've been told, why are you giving away so much? I'm like, because I want them to work with me again. Yeah. And I'm keeping money within my network. The profit's still there. We're still making loads of money.
Could you have done £50 million worth of deals had you not split the pie with so many other people?
No way.
They are them. That's it.
No way.
End of discussion.
You'd struggle to do one. If you're not willing to split the pie, then you're going to have problems. You know, and you're going to get really defensive when stuff comes out the blue and you didn't realize it. You know, oh, well, I got to do an extra survey. It's going to cost me $1,000. Like, and you can get really like tied up and emotional about it. You've just got to think clearly, look at the numbers and go, actually, you know what? How much am I putting into this? Nothing. Maybe a few grand. All right. How much profit am I making? $500,000. Yeah. Is that really that bad if someone else is making more than you?
I think that's something that you do really well, because a lot of people get caught up on the fact that if they've got to raise 100k, they'll go, I need to find an investor that's got
at 12% as well.
Yeah.
It's like, we're trying to offer 20, 25.
Yeah.
We've been known to offer 100% fixed returns.
That's it. Sometimes you get so caught up just finding that one investor, whereas what you do quite creatively and very well is you may not find one investor for that 100k, you'll split it out and split the pie with multiple
if necessary.
People. Still the same pot
to feed.
I meet an investor, which is a person, it's a human at the end of the day, when you're dealing with an individual, right? And then they have some money to invest. They tell me how much they want to invest. And if I can place it, hey, I might even look at it and go, all right, we're still 2 weeks away from completion. Bit tight, but hey, you want to put 60 grand in. And my problem is now 60 grand smaller. I only need 40k now because I needed 100 before. Yeah. Like, actually, I'm going to do that anyway because it makes my life easier, because it is easier to borrow 40 than it is to borrow 100. It just is. So like, do that. You know, but also get creative the way you want to do it, you know, and we'll talk later, I think, about things like capital stacks, and development has different ways you can get lending, and in different places you can get different amounts. But we're doing a site at the moment where the cost is somewhere in the region of 4.5 million. And
what for the
whole site? GDC is about 4.5 mil plus finance fees. And we need 250 grand to get into that. And I'm hoping to get a message any time this weekend, which will bring it down to about 200k to get into that. And if you think about that, then you try and do a buy refurb, you buy it for 70 grand, spend 20 grand on it, you're going to need 40, 50k to get into that, roughly half your cost, because of the way the equity works within the deals. They're not big enough. On a bigger deal, banks are way more generous. And you can piece different bits together, and sometimes some of it's quite expensive, but we're still only talking 15%, and most of us pay 15% to an investor.
That's mental, isn't it?
So use the options available to you and piece it together from different places. Don't just think, I've only got one option to go down. There's all sorts of different sites that are available to you. You don't always need to do everything cash. You don't always need to take bridging finance out. It may be cheaper to use an individual. There's family office types of lending that will give you 100%, depending on who you are and where you're from and what you want to do. You know, depending on your status of planning, depending on the size of the build, there's loads of different pieces of the puzzle. You can joint venture with builders, and they can cover some of your build cost. You can joint venture with landowners. You can joint venture with some landowners, but not others if you're doing a land assembly thing. You could do a planning gain thing. You can do options. You can do lockout agreements. You can use loan agreements. You can joint venture and give equity stakes. And then you've got the different types of security. Like, you could be so creative with this. And people love it then when they're an investor and they get to sit down and go, right, I want this. And you go, I can give you that.
Solution.
People love that. I think they can get exactly what they want, the terms that they want, the length of it, obviously the term, but also the interest rates, you know, how much security they get. Like, and you can just be creative.
So how do you get round? Because the biggest thing we find with raising finance is the security, for instance, on the money. Because we've raised finance before on certain aspects, and the biggest stumbling, not necessarily stumbling, but the biggest concern or question they come back from them is, what's the guarantee I'm going to get this back?
Yeah.
Now, where's it going? I'm not just going to give you, 100 grand and see you later. Nice to see your pictures of you in Marbella having a nice week. Where's that being used, and what's it being used for, and how am I going to get that back?
Yeah, and it's a really important question. And if you're investing in a deal and you're not asking that, then start asking.
Why are you concerned? Why are you concerned with that?
And for me, that's a kind of a two-phased question. You know, number one is you need to know for yourself the fact that losing money in property is actually really damn hard. Like, you have to suck at your job if you're losing money in property. I've got to be honest with you. Like, it should be impossible. If you buy an asset and you do something to it, no matter what you do to it, in theory, if worst comes to worst, you sell it, you get your money back, unless you bought it above market value.
Yeah.
Never do that. But you need to understand that fundamentally with yourself. It's the same with developments. You should know that your worst case scenario returns all of the capital to everybody who put it in. You as the person putting nothing in and paying a few fees, you may lose out. But in terms of an investor buying equity, you should never even be in a position where you lose money, ever. So for us, the risk for the investor is more on how much profit you make. And that's a much easier conversation to have for starters. Second, around your types of security, you've got a lot of different options. You know, from personal guarantees and contracts, two different things. But like a lot of
So do
time
you sign personal guarantees with some of them? If
yeah,
they want it?
some. I prefer not to, but it depends on the deal. Depends on what needs to go through.
Would the preferred option to be...
If I had my way, I don't ever want to sign a contract on anything. But that's also quite greedy. You know, so you have to win some and you lose some, and you give and you take, and that's how it works, right?
James Armstrong doesn't even exist.
So yeah, contracts, personal guarantees. Then you've got restrictions and charges on title. They can be difficult, and I'd really recommend you don't offer those out if you want to get lending. That you can make your life a nightmare if you do that. But if you've got other assets in the background, or we've got a site at the moment where we're going to end up with a big chunk of land at the end of it, which we can't build on, but we can use it as security, and we can use it as equity for the future. So it has different purposes, and we will make it a cash flowing asset, believe me. But
We do.
yeah. But you can use different forms of security on that. It doesn't have to be the same site you're doing. And then you've obviously got collateral of some sort. You know, you can offer up anything as collateral. You can offer up shares in another project. You can offer up shares in your business. You can offer, you know, do your research on what you're offering. But like, you know, you can offer up all sorts of different bits pieces of the puzzle. If you're a joint venture partner with us and you're physically going in, sharing the risk in the project, sharing in the profits, then you're going to buy equity in the deal. So your money is secured against the value of the site that is being purchased, whether that's land, an existing building, whatever it might be.
So it's secured against the actual development they're going through.
Yeah, and
gives them a
usually
peace of mind.
we're getting a below market value as well. So there's extra headroom in there anyway. So again, should worst come to worst, you sell it, you should still make a profit. It just might be less, but then it'll take you a hell of a lot less time.
So you've still got that asset there to retain.
Exactly.
clever.
That's the beauty of property.
Yeah.
If it all goes tits up, you can't just sell the asset and get out. If you're
Don't
halfway
wanna
through
do
the
that,
build,
though.
that's difficult, mind you.
Yeah,
but yeah.
don't want to do that. So that's quite good then. Obviously, you've gone through, you've spoke to the investors, you've created that, you've nurtured to get to that point.
Oh yeah, you never pitch on day one.
No,
you guys know this as well as I do. Like, if you walk into a person you never met before and you're like, "Hey, give me $100,000. I got a deal. You're gonna love it."
Yeah.
You know, they might entertain a
love
conversation.
hearing stories of people that have just gone, I call this investor, I want to lend $100,000. I know he's got $100,000, but he won't lend it to me.
What's his middle name? What does he
What's
do
his
for a
surname?
living? Yeah, what's he do for a living? Where's he like to go on holiday? Where's he like to eat? What's his interest? What's his hobbies? You don't know any of this.
Why
you
don't
don't
you
know
know
the guy.
that about it?
Get to know your people, because this was a mind-blowing kind of exercise for me that I kind of hoped I didn't have to do, but you're going to get this. We completed Stay at the Castle. We didn't have the money we needed. We had to raise 150 grand in 24 hours. But more specifically,
Challenge Annika.
More specifically,
Go.
I needed 100 grand in the bank that day. And I was ringing people up, and people saying, how many calls do you make? I made 200 calls in 3 hours in that morning. I was ringing anybody. I was ringing people I hadn't spoken to for 18 months. Like, you've got to just pick the phone to people. But I only got 2 no's. Out of 200 people, I got 2 people who said no. I got 198 people who say yes. And I got 1 or 2 people who said that they'd actually be able to do it within the time frame that I needed. Most of them need 24 hours, 48 hours. But these are people willing to give me 100 grand over the phone without a contract on the back of a 30-second pitch, because I didn't have time to go through the details of it.
Wow.
I mean, the crux of the matter was I was already getting the money. It was just lost in the banking system somewhere. Yeah. So they knew I was respectable. But still, you're giving 100 grand to a guy you may have not even met in person.
It's his reputation by this
It's
point.
reputation, but it's also rapport with the individual. Like, you got to know who they are. You got to know what they are like as an individual, who they are as a person. And if you don't have that relationship with your investors, you're going to struggle. But more than that, you don't get the massive upside of your investors going out and raising finance for their own projects, because they want to do more, because they see what you're doing. They're inspired by you. And I tell you, there's nothing better when you see one of your investors go out and get more money to do more deals.
With you.
Like, come on.
That's cool.
I love
isn't
that. It doesn't have to be you that raises the finance. You can outsource it, man. We're all about systemization, right?
I remember on
Systemization's
that day
key.
you were trying to raise 150 grand. I think one of the biggest constraints was the amount people can actually transfer.
That money in that day, yeah.
Because you obviously can't do
No.
100k in 24 hours.
No, it's not faster payments, mate. You
No.
can't just like, there you
I'll
go.
ping it over now.
Yeah.
It's not like you just paid for a pizza.
No.
It's so I think that was one of the biggest constraints. But 200 calls, that's a record.
Potentially, yeah.
So get to know your investors, really. It's the
Really get to
importance.
know them,
I think we
yeah.
spoke briefly before because we were talking about looking at the phones, and you mentioned about actually you mentioned before about how much you worked like 80, 100 hours. You didn't like that because it was just too much, but now you're doing the same again now.
But it's different.
But the difference is now is your success or earnings is exponential compared to what you put. You could have worked the same.
Yeah.
You can work more or less at a job. You're not going to get paid any more or less. But if you work harder here, look what you're doing now.
I was meeting with a guy yesterday, he's a QS, right? And he's worked for some big names. You'd recognise some of the people. He's working on big projects, bigger projects than we're working on. And he took a site on, he was dealing with the cost management of it, and it was basically he wasn't making any money. He flipped on his head and he found 1.5 million quid extra profit, basically, and made the whole deal viable. And he got a $6,000 commission for that, and it took him 18 months. He works in a job. Now, if one of us did that, we generated £1.5 million worth of profit for an investor, we get at least 10% of it. Think about it. One way or another. And that's the difference of being on the client side and being the person who's actually doing the deal, is you get to reap the rewards for your hard work. And that's the beauty of being a business. But the other beauty is you can give out that to other people as well, and you can build relationships. And bear in mind, all these investors are investing with our projects. They're going to make a lot of money. What's going to happen in 2-3 years when those deals start completing?
They want more.
They're going to want more. Yeah. And not only will we have more cash because we will complete on the deals as well, but our investors will have more cash.
Keep growing and growing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You keep watering that flower, and it will.
Yeah, the money doesn't have to be in your banks; it needs to be in your network.
You just know it, yeah.
So try and think about making. They always say your network's your net worth, right?
Yeah.
So you immediately go, okay, I need a bigger network. That's true, but you also need the people in your network to be more wealthy. You need to bring the people up around you, and you bring your support base
Attract
with you.
the ones you want with you.
Yeah.
So in that.
Speaking on that point, then, where's some of the places that you've got investors from, or met with investors? Because I know there's been some wacky ones.
Oh yeah.
So apart from the typical networking events, and I'll give out business cards, what else do you got?
Yeah, I mean, there are times we spend a lot of time on the road, right? So you can get frustrated when the M6 is closed for an accident, and you're thinking, why? Like, why? And then you have to take a detour through Warrington, and you go, oh, you know what? I could really just stop with getting a drink and using the restroom. Yeah. So I was going to Tesco. No joke. This is hand on heart. This is true. Like you can't script this stuff.
To say Tesco, I can't.
All right, I'm walking into Tesco, and this lady stops and goes, "Excuse me, was that your car?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Oh, it was really nice." I was like, "Oh, thank you." So I'm walking. I'm coming back out, and she's there taking a photo, and I'm like, "Yeah, you can knock yourself out." She goes, "What do you do?" I said, "Oh, I'm a property investor and developer." She goes, "No way." I was like, "What do you do?" She's like, "Well, I'm a doctor, but I've just started kind of moving out of that, and I've just bought 15 houses down here."
This in Tesco car park.
Yeah. In
After you've had the whiz.
Yeah. A place I've never been to before. I shouldn't have been there because I should have been on the M6, but it was closed. Massive detour home. And, we got an investor there with a few $100,000. Like, they come from everywhere. I met people on the tube, in the train. But, seminars, fantastic. Social media's fantastic. Things like this, obviously brilliant.
Yeah.
Get yourself out there.
Get yourself out there and start talking to people. Don't sit at home. There's a difference between passive networking
talk about
and actively networking.
I got a different thing from that. I got... Get yourself a nice car, go to Tesco, have a whiz, and that's how you get investors. No one else got that, no.
Just drive around in someone else's car. Yeah. Or a nice car, should I say.
So if we can borrow your car, that'd be much appreciated. Yeah. But,
maybe not right now.
No, maybe not.
Inside.
Right, well, that's I wasn't expecting to say that, I can't lie.
Honestly, mate, the answer is everywhere. And you're never really going to expect to meet people, but if you open your mouth and have the conversation, you'd be surprised.
We say it, don't we? The first thing or the biggest thing anyone should always do as a property investor is tell everybody you're a property investor.
Rule number one.
That's it.
Rule number one.
Yeah. See, everyone comes in, everyone says the same thing.
Last night, my best mate walks in and goes, a mate of mine decided he wants to buy a few HMOs in Preston. He goes online, he starts Googling about it. Lo and behold, he finds you. He nearly falls off his chair. He's like, "You live with this guy?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Can you get me in touch? I want to have a chat with him." So after this meeting, I've got a call with him. Like, they come from everywhere.
That's it.
But anyone who's out there, if you want to recommend an investor to us, you get 10% commission on whatever they invest or whatever they buy.
There you go.
Sponsored by.
You can put a cheesy tune behind that cheesy sales thing.
There you go.
That'd be
Oh wow, that was effortless. That was good. But I think we'll wrap things up a little bit with that one, because I think we've gone through so many ins and outs with that one. I hope you were taking notes with that one, because you've covered quite a lot, especially where to find them, what to do, and the key thing, like you mentioned as well, is contracts for all these. You can't just go into bed with these things like we mentioned before. You have to get them, whether they're lockout agreements, loan agreements.
But then people panic because they don't have contracts, right?
Yeah. Network
Legals
again.
are important, but don't get yourself concerned with it when you're agreeing a deal with someone. Just agree a deal with someone. Whatever it is you want to do, unless it's out and out illegal. Like whatever it is you want to do, you can put that in a contract. You know, so I would say
It's a
as
blank
well,
template at the end of the day.
yeah.
And you just go with what you've agreed, then get it drawn up.
Yeah,
Some
get
agreement
yourself a good solicitor who knows what they're doing. Make sure they're legally represented as well. You should probably know a little bit about contracts and stuff. But one of the ways I learned about raising finance, apart from just speaking to investors and having negotiation with them and selling deals and all that kind of stuff, which is super important. By the way, if you're a deal source and you know how to sell deals, like it's the same thing, but instead of asking for a fee, you go, hey, why don't you go halves with me? Or why don't you invest it? Like, it's literally the same pitch.
Don't overcomplicate it.
Nah, keep it stupid, simple, right? As they say.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Depends who's saying it.
Depends who's saying it. But do that. And then you want to learn about financing, like the regular options that are available to you. You've got consumer credit financing, which is great, loans and all that kind of stuff. You can use them and they're dirt cheap if you've got a good credit score. But then, especially for a lot of investors who are going to be on like good paying wages, you can get 20, 30 grand from personal loans. It's nuts. Credit cards as well. You can use that to pay for refurbs. You can use anything. But like all your development finance, mezz finance, stretch finance, mortgages and so on, just get on the phone with good brokers and speak to multiple brokers and ask them different questions and just come up with a problem and say, how do I solve it?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to learn what all the different options are until you start throwing problems at people, not in a I've got a problem kind of way, but like,
You
hey,
must fix this.
how do I solve this?
that's the
Or
thing.
hypothetically, if someone came to me like this and they're from this country or that or whatever, how do I get around it? Like, what's the solution? Start speaking to more brokers. And if your brokers are saying you can't, ditch them. Start getting people saying you can.
Because people are
can.
going to come to you with property problems,
All the
and
time.
your job is to solve them. Just the same with mortgage brokers,
Yeah.
finance guys, solicitors. That's what they're there to do. They're supposed to be
is.
problem solvers.
And the thing
And
is-
if they're not, they shouldn't be in your team.
If your people are representing themselves, then you don't want them.
Yeah.
You want everyone representing the same firm, the same deal. You want people representing the deal. They'll say, where's your interest lie? I'm like, with the deal. Not with myself, not with my investor, not with anyone else, with the deal. So the deal makes loads of money, we all win.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason we're doing it. And we're not recreating the wheel.
No.
Whatever your situation you're in has happened or been done.
Yeah.
So you just need to ask the right question to the right person.
Yeah,
That's
this
it,
industry is
isn't it?
what, 150 years old?
So
Well, it's obviously a
older
lot
than
older
me.
than that in terms of buying land, is their genesis, but like as we know
Gone
it
biblical
today,
now.
Commercially, yeah.
commercially as we know it now, at least 150 years of solid market data. This
been
is
done.
not a young industry,
been
man.
done. It's not.
Like it has been done before, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Why do you think we don't get a new strategy?
That's
Why do you
it.
think the last interesting strategy that came out was Rent to SA, and that came out in like 2004? Like,
If you don't know it, find someone who does. Someone's done it. Just go out and ask the right person.
Yeah.
That's it. So I think based on that,
We have got one final section of the show, haven't we?
oh
Which we have, each week we put out listeners' questions.
yes,
Oh,
We've
cool.
actually got 3 for yourself.
3 questions.
Yeah, usually we only spoil our guests with 2, but the last one's a special one.
Oh, there we go.
And you don't actually know about this as well.
No, I have no idea.
Yeah. Okay, so the first one, and they've all come from Instagram. The first one was, what was your worst deal and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I had a project myself. I was doing a joint venture on some Rent to SA apartments, and I learned that setup time on SAs is important for any rent to rent. You know, and I learned the difference between an investment and a cost. I learned the difference between sort of how a rent to rent would work versus others, and the fact that, you know, when you put your money down up front and the liability side versus the profit side, people look at rent to rent and go, "Oh, I can make £1,000 a month," and you might make a few £100 a month, but look at your actual figure for your outgoings. Because I had a £250,000 business that it wasn't making any money, it wasn't really losing much, although we lost the setup fees, but it was a £250,000 business. That's a big business in itself. A lot of people don't make 250 grand a year. That's revenue. And yet it wasn't making any money. Like, it's got high overheads, USAs do. So and other rent to rent. So just consider that for yourself, like understanding cash flows. You know,
vouch for that. No, definitely.
yeah, you know, with a property, like it's lump sums of cash. It's not like every month things coming out, and that's why cash flow is king.
Yeah.
Because on the other side, negative cash flow will ruin you faster than anything else you've expected. So that, and then also just understanding when things need your attention and time management. Like I was already very, very busy, and I probably shouldn't take it on because I was too busy. But at the same time, it was like actually, I learned very, very valuable lessons from that. And yeah, you come out the other side stronger. You win some, you lose some. Right, it's only a deal I've lost money on. So I guess that's obviously
Not
the
mega,
worst
though.
deal.
No, nothing too mega.
I don't remember the exact figure. It was like 30 grand or something. It was my own money though.
Oh, right, there you go. Then.
So
Well, I think the principles that you've learned behind it have obviously give you lessons all the way through your progressive career now.
yeah,
So,
and to be honest, I've been them off like 2 months before COVID hit anyway, at which point I would have had to hit them anyway.
Oh, man.
So like it's
talk about timing.
exactly like it was nuts. And like I say, you win some, you lose some.
It's all part of learning. Grow.
It's all part of learning. And for me, I was like, look, rents are fantastic, but if you're going to take it on and you're not going to devote literally every second you have to getting that thing done in days, then you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get stung.
You need
because
to get it live.
You need to get it live. And, I'm not a rent-to-rent expert. I know how they work. I've done a few, but you've got to get them live. And I think everybody who does rent-to-rents,
we've gone down to on weekends, spent weekends down.
Yeah, you have to,
because we just thought we can't just wait till next week or do this. We've gone down like a Wednesday, Thursday, then come out the weekend to finish it because it needs to be taking money in. Otherwise, you've got a constant outgoing that doesn't change no matter what you're getting in. If you're not getting anything in, you're still paying out. So that's the key thing.
So I think just keeping your eyes open to the risk of certain projects. There's a risk in everything, right? It doesn't mean it's going to go wrong, but just be aware of it. And since then, I've been a lot more conscious and aware of the downside in every deal that we do, and we just spend a little bit more time putting hedges in place.
So the second one, we've pretty much answered it. So rewind about 20 minutes ago, and it was, why did you first start in property?
I needed something to do. I need to keep my mind busy. I needed to be fulfilled.
What an answer. I was bored. I needed something to do.
But more than that, though, I needed a sense of fulfillment. You know, there's a difference between making money and doing things that are cool and all the rest of it, but you want to be happy fundamentally. You want to be grateful. You want to be joyful. And hey, some people can do that on £1,000 a month. I probably could as well, depending on what I was doing. It just happened to be the thing that I chose. Makes me a lot of money. But it's the fulfillment side of what I'm doing. It's the conversations you have. It's the wacky meetings with people in Tesco that just make you go, wow, man, this is so cool.
Going on?
You must have got back in that car and thought, did that just happen? What's going on?
I was a bit like, this is nuts.
Big up. We drive there after this. Not in my car.
Wait for doctors. Okay, and the final question, it's off a guy, you may know him, but he's put, why is Anthony so much cooler than James? I'm not too sure why.
It's from a guy called...
Can you comment on that? Or?
I mean, he is the silver fox, right?
It's called from Bantony Wilmot.
Bantony Wilmot, that sounds about right. Yeah, like I say, he's the silver fox. You know. But then there's very few people who can go great at 35.
Yeah, that's very true.
Well, I'm 40 in 6 months. Wait for the compliments. Anybody?
Is that why you had your hair cut short?
Anybody?
Just in case.
Are you legitimately nearly 40?
It's 6 months' time. Legit. See, for those who can't see, his jaw just hit the table just then. So he realised I'm like Peter Pan.
Yeah.
Jeez, man. You got a retirement plan sorted and pensions and all
This
that.
is it. I'm working on it now. That's why I'm getting into developments next. That's my retirement plan. It's life insurance. Jesus, you got a walking cane.
Yeah, like you're there and then the bar later we're going for lunch trying to pour himself a scotch, just like
shaking.
A single. No, I'm just on just get my slippers on and just have a nice cup of cocoa.
It is worth
sure
knowing.
You're not out too late.
I tell you what,
Friday actually. So
it is worth knowing. So like, it's spot on. The video went out last night on Instagram. We're laughing about it before we came in. Like we do have fun, and I think if you don't have that, you're gonna struggle, right? Because we get hit with stuff every day, and you're just like, why am I going to deal with this?
We've had things like that.
Yeah, stupid stuff. Like just arguing with stupid government systems about trying to put like claims in and all this. It's painful sometimes dealing with these outdated systems. You've got to have a bit of fun in life. And the amount of times that we're cocking about, I mean, the number one thing we love to do is when Anthony's on camera, he's dead serious, right? He's got to be there. He's in focus. Me and David are just cocking about in the background trying to put him off. And that video we put out when we were in the pub, he was like, I got this. I'm unbreakable. I got it. And we were like, challenge accepted.
Yeah. Now you're getting it.
Especially when he's like been shooting it and he's like 4 or 5 times he's cocked it up and he's getting angry. And then he's about to nail it and you're like, this is perfect opportunity. We'll just cock around the back of scenes.
This will just break.
The finishing bit.
It's gold dust, and that's what it's all about. You got to live a little bit lightheartedly. And if you can't have a crack and a joke and banter with your business partners, like what you doing?
That's it.
Yeah, I think it's great between all three. One of the first questions I asked you was, how do you determine what everyone does in the business? And each person that you went through, they're all doing stuff they enjoy. Dave's doing stuff he enjoys, Anthony and yourself. And when you come together, it's a great trio. It
is. It's also
at least the
worth
bloopers are funny anyway.
We can interchange job roles. You know, like David or Anthony could be on the phone with an investor and do a very, very good job. You know, there's nothing to say that people can't share roles or do certain things. Some people come to David because people associate themselves better with David. Some people come to me because they associate themselves better with me. Like, don't get too precious over it. Things are the way they are, and that's completely cool. And you do need the depth in your teams for people to help, especially with staff, right? Holiday time, sick pay, all this stuff you don't get as a business owner, and people just going off because they want to go off. You're not going to get the 9 till 5 when you're under business, mate. You do not have that pleasure.
No.
Especially if you're dealing with people in a different time zone when you have to do calls at 2 o'clock in the morning because that's when they're awake. But hey, if they've got £1 million, wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Because do you want that? Do you want that money?
Literally.
How much do you want that?
And you've got to consider all of this. So when you're having your business partners with you, make sure that you get on well. Make sure you do have different strengths, but make sure you can also, you can cross over and you can do different things. Like either one of you could do delivery and either one of you could sell deals. One of you might be better than the other. That's cool. That's just your natural strengths. Play to those. But you've also got to have absolute trust. If I pass something over to Antti and say, can you pick this up? He'll pick it up. I don't need to follow up with him. Every now and again, things will slip through cracks and you keep each other accountable. Of course you do. But you've got to have absolute trust that the person will do a good job and you can leave them to it. That's hard, especially when you get staff, but you have to make that move.
Amazing. So I think it's a natural point to stop there. Questions answered. I hope everybody enjoyed that, because I know we did anyway, because there was some things in there. I remember in the middle, you just one sentence and you reeled off like 6 different ways you can raise finance and structure things. That on itself is a bombshell.
Look into all of them.
Yeah, I hope you took something from that, because there was so much information in there. And with that in mind, if people want to reach out to you, get in touch with you and find out what's going on with you, how do they do that?
Social media is probably the best way of getting hold of me. We're active every day, so whether that's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, it's all there. Like, just drop a message. If you want to join venture with us, again, I'm always going to offer for the first meeting to try and be in person or over the phone. I want to get to know you before we do anything else. But if you're like ready to move and you want to go on a site, give us a shout. There's always equity available to do somewhere. There's always something we can do, and there's no such thing as too much capital, right? At the moment, we've got some pretty tasty options out there. So you want to clean 100% per annum?
There you go.
Give me a shout.
Simple as that.
Certainly very, very interesting. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, James. Really, really has. And I feel like we could probably do another couple of hours or so. But
more than happy to shoot episode 2 now, lads.
We could do 2 parts.
That's it. We'll have to do a follow-up episode, because we haven't even got to the end of the year yet, and you're at the 50 mil mark. So
it's looking
next 3 months.
The next quarter's looking nuts, I tell you. So
Jesus, I'm excited.
No.
You're excited. Ooh. I'm buzzing, man. Like I can't wait to catch a few more flights to my sites.
See, sorry, we keep trying to end this with it. Just more things coming up. He's flying to sites.
Yeah.
Flying to, there you go. That's all I'm saying. He's flying to his sites now.
Yeah. Not my own jet, sadly.
Not a gold jet or anything, but he's still flying to his site.
Not yet. That's got AWT on the side.
We will do. We will do. Grant Card, don't eat your heart out, right?
Yeah.
Next.
Well, for everyone listening at home, I hope you've enjoyed that, and I really hope that you've been sitting there with a notepad and pen, because some gold nuggets actually you've brought out there, which is amazing. As always, if you do have any questions or you want to reach out to us, please feel free to visit us on our social media. Likewise for James, I know you've been more than happy to feed back to people. But for now, James, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to see what you do in the next 12 months.
Thanks, gents.
Fantastic
way to spend a Friday morning.